Oh, wow, okay.
Okay. Good presentation. We are going to brief you on what fallacies. Good evening. Why is evening? I'm going to continue.
I'm wait though.
To force. It's committed when anger or popularity of a premises. Using the popularity. Logical fallacies are wrong.
Good afternoon, Ms. Bakers. My name is Anna Kashibone.
And I'm Okra Shivela. We are going to present on fallacies. Let's look at the outline. It says, what are logical fallacies? And we look at the reasons to avoid these fallacies and as well as how to avoid these fallacies. We also look at the different kinds of fallacies as well as the examples. You might be wondering, what are these logical fallacies? It's an error in reasoning that makes your argument less effective and convincing. It is also an error in reasoning that renders an argument invalid, as it draws false conclusions and it misuses or misinterprets evidence. We are also going to look at the reasons to avoid these fallacies. These fallacies are wrong, and they weaken your argument or the point that you are trying to make, and it also makes the reader feel down.
Now let's look at how to avoid fallacies. Firstly, you need to stick to your point and stop trying to deceive the listener. Cite relevant sources, relevant information from relevant sources. Avoid derogatory or misleading information, because the last thing you want to do is manipulate and mislead the listener. To continue, let's look at the different types of logical fallacies. First, we'll start with fallacies of relevance, premises that look logically irrelevant to conclusion. And then number 2, fallacies of weak induction, argument whose premises do not make their conclusion very probable. Thirdly, fallacies of presumptions, when an unwarranted assumption is used to draw a conclusion. Fourthly, and lastly, fallacies of ambiguity, involves confusion over meaning of a term used in an argument, specifically confusion of the members.
When we look at the different kinds of fallacies, firstly we have the sunk cost fallacy that states that rather than spend another minute of your time doing something that is not going anywhere, it's better to switch gears ASAP and start putting your energy into doing something productive. For example, take this course that we are doing. It's a 4-year degree program, but now we are in our 3rd year. So if let's say you have an interest in something else that doesn't require a degree, you can still put that in hold and finish your degree instead of switching gears. Secondly, we look at the ad hominem fallacy, and it states that it takes place when you attack a person's character, personality, or appearance, or something irrelevant, instead of attacking what the person is actually saying. That is quite self-explanatory. Yes.
Now let's look at the straw man fallacy. They represent weaker arguments that oversimplify or that distract from the main point the debater is trying to make. So let's say if person A makes a claim, so person B restates person A's claim in order to distract them or distort in a distorted way in order to distract them. Then let's look at the red herring fallacy. When you make an argument with the intentions of distracting the real issue at hand. So if person A makes a claim, then person B makes another claim in order to nullify person A's claim.
Then we look at appeal to ignorance. This fallacy states that it's an assumption of a conclusion or effect based primarily on lack of evidence to the contrary. For example, X is true because you cannot prove that X is false, or X is false because you cannot prove that X is true. Then we look at appeal to force. This is a fallacy committed when and the arguer uses threats, physical or psychological harm in order for you to believe their statement. For example, if you do not believe that God exists, then I will hurt you. Then we look at appeal to pity. It is an attempt to distract them from the truth of the conclusion by the use of pity. For example, person A is accused of Y, but person 1 is pathetic, therefore person 1 is innocent. Then you say X is true because person 1 worked really hard for at making you believe that X is true.
Then let's look at appeal to popularity. So this is when using a popularity of premises or preposition as evidence of its truthfulness. Basically, it's like saying, just because Beyonce uses Dove, that's the best product, or because Beyonce supports Adidas, then that is the best brand out there. Then let's look at hasty generalization. This is drawing conclusions based on a small sample size rather than looking at the statistics. So basically, this is like saying, making a sample test of how many people in Windhoek like chocolate, and then deciding that the whole of Namibia likes chocolate because most of Windhoek's population likes chocolate. Yes. Then false cause fallacy, claiming that the cause is true or false based on what we know about the effect in a claim of causality that has not been properly established. So if X apparently causes Y, then that means that Y is wrong and therefore X is wrong.
We look at the oversimplified fallacy. It's a simplistic thinking that implies something is either a cause or it is not. For example, X is a contributing factor to Y. X and Y are present. Therefore, to remove X, you also need to remove Y. Then we look at the slippery slope. It is committed when an arguer uses chains in order to argue that if something happens or doesn't, then specific events happen. For example, if A, then C, then ultimately Z.
Our last slide is the references, and that comes to the end of our presentation.
Yes, as my partner said, this marks the end of our presentation. Thank you for your time and cooperation.
Thank you.